So once upon a time, someone had asked me, like, yeah, do you plan to record an audio version of your book, The Fangirl Diaries? I would, but the closest thing I have is my home studio here. But with my home studio, I like to let the cats free roam. So I'm not sure if anyone would want to listen to an audiobook with cats meowing in the background. Isn't that right, Karma? Now, with that said, let's go on to our special edition of Convention Tea. This is our serving of this time's convention tea, and we are talking about Geek Girl Con. Geek Girl Con, this is my first time attending Geek Girl Con. It's a convention that takes place up in Seattle, usually during the fall time, and this is all about the celebration of inclusivity and excellence within the femme geek sphere. I heard about this con through a friend of mine who wanted to do a panel all about creating cosplay from books when you might not have like the best references available. Like, how do you bring that to life? So with that said, like, you know what, let me check out Geek Girl Con, let me see what they have to offer. So I was going through the website and I was looking at their content from 2024, the previous year, and I was like, you know what, this convention could use a little bit of more anime, and I am that otaku nerd to deliver all of that. So I had Kumori-con the weekend before in Portland, and then once Kumori-con was done, I took a 3-hour train up to Seattle, and I was ready for Geek Girl Con. And I also have another convention coming up this weekend, San Diego Anime Con. Yeah, this weekend was like my one weekend to just kind of catch up and unwind and just kind of like do a social battery recharge. And I get to do that all over again this weekend at San Diego AnimeCon, where I get to do a 90-minute panel on Y2K era, perform with Cosplay Wrestling Federation, and also perform with my idol group, Angel Hearts. Conventions, please invite Angel Hearts to your events. We want to bring the joy of Para Para to you all. And speaking of trends from the Y2K, so this is your first time tuning into Convention Tea, I am the Wisteria Witch, Nadeshko Gatsby, and also in my human form, it is I, cosplay Ancestor Airy, and basically, I've been doing conventions since 1999, and since then, I've been running a website called ScarletRhapsody.com. This originally was a website where I was hosting and producing podcasts and radio dramas of all these fictitious stories that I was creating and writing. And one day I attended my first convention solo, attended Anime Expo 2000 at the Disneyland Hotel and Resort. And I wanted to share my photos, my stories, everything I wanted to say about it, all on the website. And in its cringiest, written by a 15-year-old Ness, uploaded onto, I think at the time it was a GeoCities website, was my convention reports, and I've been doing this for about 25 years. I don't intend to stop anytime soon because I really think that documenting fandom history, what conventions, what fandom community was like back then is so important to our survival as a cultured species. But that's just my opinion. I'm I'm a historian nerd. I like talking about fandom. I love any opportunity that I can talk about fandom with an audience and also create and build community within that space as well. And of course, I just wanted to let y'all know that no ChatGPT, no Gen AI was used to create this presentation of Geek Girl Con 2025. All right, let's talk about Geek Girl Con 2025. So, this is the first of its kind of con I've ever attended. I've attended various queerly themed conventions, from YaoiCon, which focused more on boys' love and more the aesthetics and objectification of men in pretty manga, I guess you can say 18 plus. I've also been to LGBTQ themed conventions where it had a mix of activism, a mix of the whole spectrum of the rainbow at these events. And this is my first time going to a convention that really celebrated women, femmes, and so forth in fandom. And like, wow, it's taken me like over 20 years to attend a con like this one. And of course, I'm from California. And I'm surprised we haven't had something like this just yet. I mean, we do have things called like Sailor Moon Day when that was a thing here. There was an attempt to create like Shoujo Con here, but it kind of it didn't get past the planning stage. We originally wanted to call it we wanted to adapt the model of Shoujo Con and then also include Western this and that with it too. So we were thinking about calling it Valkyrie Con, but again, it just never just got past the like, hey, that's a good idea kind of phase. But it was thought of, but it just never got off the ground. But I just appreciate that there's a space for geeky femmes to just kind of get together and just sort of celebrate the femme aspect of being a nerd. And the thing about Geek Girl Con, um, there's a lot of references that just cut across all generations of geekiness. So you have like a lot of rooms named after feminine geeky icons. So you have the Uhura room, which is one of the panel rooms. You have the Storm room, which is where your main events is going to be held. I really like the theming of this, and the convention guide is not called a convention program. It is called a strategy guide, and I like how it was printed out on a pamphlet. It was on a brochure, so I could like just take it out at any time because, not gonna lie, the Wi-Fi at the Washington Convention Center was kind of spotty, not so reliable. Not really the fault of the convention, but just kind of like the nature of things we have to deal with. So I just ended up just I really appreciate just having like the brochure, the pamphlet style of program guide, which had the maps, schedule, and even a listing of all the indie games that you could check out in the video game room. So I was already liking the vibes already. I just was really excited to check out this 2 day convention because I'm always excited to check out new conventions, just kind of like explore the culture, just kind of check out the vibes, and you know what? Also just check out vendors that I normally won't get to don't get to see out in California. Technically, this is my third convention at the Washington Convention Center this year. So, yeah, that might be a sign that I'll be doing more of these Washington conventions in the near future because I love Washington. All right, but before we can start on our 2 day journey to Geek Girl Con, I'd like to give a shout out to one of our sponsors, Petals and Poison. With Petals and Poison, this is a great resource for all your gothic needs: necklaces, jewelry, teacups, roller perfume, and so much more. You can get your you can get your loved ones who love this kind of stuff. You can use my code Spectre15 to get 15% off your order. And again, shop small business. I usually go to I usually go to their tea shop, Burnt Umber, over in Garden Grove from time to time. It's like one of my favorite go-to coffee and tea places here in Southern California. And if you're listening in from Washington State or Pacific Northwest, highly recommend just making a trip out to Burnt Umber. And also, while you're there, you might as well get a couple of items from Petals and Poison. I own their urn, um, which is pretty much my coffee cup. So my coffee cup, it looks a lot like an urn. So with that said, all right, let's talk about some Geek Girl Con. So at Geek Girl Con, I was asked to be a contributor, which also meant that I was a panelist. So I was running 2 different panels, from words to cosplay, dressing up from your favorite books. I was doing that with It's Still Cosplay, aka Dia. And then I was also presenting The Power of Girlhood and Friendship, Why 90s Magical Girls Still Rule. I noticed that last year there's kind of a lack of anime programming, so like, okay, let me be the one to talk about magical girls and to and to like, hi, here's my magical girl sparkle brain rot panel. Also, in addition to that, I was asked at the last minute, like a couple of days before the convention, to moderate the BIPOC meetup. For those who don't know, BIPOC stands for Black Indigenous Persons of Color. So I was more than happy to just moderate that. I wasn't quite sure what to expect. This, again, not only this is my first time at Geek Girl Con, this is my first time doing kind of a roundtable kind of meetup. So like I was like, okay, let me just go with the flow, just kind of see how it is because I've started to have more interactivity with my panels. So let's just kind of just see how that goes, and yeah. So let's just talk about popular fandoms at Geek Girl Con. While I did see like a lot of Star Wars cosplayers, I also noticed that they were also representing the local Jedi um, lightsaber fight group. I know there's one like that here in Southern California. I admit, I'm so out of loop when it comes to Star Wars fandom, but I do like that fact that there was like a section of the convention where you can train in lightsabers. I think it was just more geared towards kids or younglings to just kind of train in lightsaber combat. But I thought that was pretty neat, and just kind of seeing the Star Wars cosplayers just kind of running around. Again, I just been so out of loop in the fandom, but just kind of glad that was there. So with popular fandoms, of what I saw most represented in terms of cosplay, I saw a lot of Disney cosplay, and we'll see a couple Disney cosplay throughout the presentation. And by Disney cosplay, I'm talking about characters that are originally a Disney intellectual property. And I also saw a lot of K-pop demon hunters. The train is not dying down anytime soon. I was supposed to cosplay as Zoe at Geek Girl Con, but the costume never came in on time. I'm pretty sure it's in customs hostage right now with what's going on with the world. RIP. But eventually that Zoe cosplay will come sometime. I mean, I did get the weapons, the boots, and the wig. Alright, come on, Zoe, pull through. And of course, a lot of people bring their original fantasy outfits. This can range from like a Ren Fair style outfit, a Hobbit style outfit with like a flower crown type of thing. You also have people wearing like mushroom hats. I love this Raven character here. So just like I just call this category like your fantasy OC. Technically, I did wear like a fancy OC type outfit at Enchanted Realms. You can view my convention report on that on my website. Enchanted Realms Festival, that was an event out here in Southern California. So think Ren Fair meets Scholastic Book Fair. It was a lot of fun. Also, before we also move forward, just want to just give a shout out to my idol group, Angel Hearts. Angel Hearts, we are a bunch of gals who just want to like dance and have fun. Check us out on our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel could use a lot more love. Let's get to 100 subscribers before the end of the year. So Angel Hearts, we are a idol performance group. We've been around since the early 2000s, starting off as a singing group covering J-pop, and then we've leveled up, started doing Idol Master covers, and now we bring the joy of Para Para to you all at anime conventions. And by the way, we're also open to performing for your next convention. So if you want to just have us just perform like anime songs, initial D songs, Para Para, definitely reach out to us. More than happy to perform for y'all because it's what we love doing. All right, Saturday. All right, let's start with day one. So Geek Girl Con, like I said, it's a 2-day con, Saturday and Sunday. Events usually typically run between 10 a.m. to 6 p.m.-ish. So it's not like an Emerald City Comic Con or a Sakura Con where you have like things just kind of like going into the AM hours of the evening. And like I said, I love how Geek Girl Con is very thematic and they really indulge you and immerse you into the theme. They even go out of the way to like create artwork for the map. So this year they kind of like had like a fantasy RPG. So think like Final Fantasy 14, my best schema to describe it. Critically acclaimed Final Fantasy 14 because 14, that's the world I come from. So like for example, like I mentioned before, you have your panel rooms like named after fictitious geeky characters. So I assume America here is after America Ferrera, aka Captain America, sorry, Miss America from Marvel. And then we also have Uhura of Star Trek fame. I actually did meet Nichelle Nichols at WinterCon a couple of years ago. She was just kind of hanging out outside of our Mecha panel that year. And yes, your eyes do not deceive you. There is also a section for gender-neutral restrooms. So just much like Kumori Con the weekend before, this con also had all-access restrooms. Like, yay, I appreciate that. One of the first things I decided to just take a peek into after getting my badge on Saturday, and again, the bad line for the badge wasn't too bad. We arrived like around like a little bit after 9 o'clock. And there was a line, but the line wasn't terribly long. So we just went downstairs once we got our badges to check out the gaming room. And the gaming room is pretty neat because not only it had like e-gaming and an indie game showcase, they also had like a room where you can play tabletop. I had a couple of my friends play Seven Wonders like during the convention there. It looked pretty interesting. I'm always curious to try out new board games because unfortunately I don't know a lot of people where I live that want to do board games or just play like tabletop games. And I wish like, yeah, I wish I had more friends who are like into that. I'm just really glad my friends up north are really into that. Play date sometime. So I was actually curious to check out just some of the e-games out here, but I wasn't quite sure if I was going to have the time to. But it seemed like a really good variety of like a lot of different things over here. And there's like always a crowd for Just Dance, and I love Just Dance. So this is just a kind of like a neat little small zone, just kind of like just check out different games and this and that and the other. Of course, this is just kind of like just the area where I would just say because I feel like every convention has like a main plaza, like a main town square. I would say like this area here for where you pick up your badge is like the main town square area of the convention. And of course, you have the archway over there that tells you like welcome to Geek Girl Con, and as you're going down the escalators, it tells you when the next event is. One of the reasons why I really wanted to come out and support Geek Girl Con, even though I've heard about it years before, like flying from Southern California to Washington just wasn't quite in my favor in the past, even though I was always curious to check out the convention. I wanted to support this convention because I heard that they were really struggling to make ends meet for 2025. So what I ended up doing is I signal boosted like a couple of their posts because they were like asking for charity to help support their event. They were looking for sponsorships, and what I did was I ended up just buying a badge for a friend of mine. Even like I'm a panelist and my badge gets comp, but like hey, if I have a friend who wants to go, like yeah, I'll comp your badge to I'll pay for your badge so you can enjoy it. And I'm also supporting a nonprofit, and I'm also supporting like this organization here too. I love the tiger like in the background too. The tiger from K-pop Demon Hunters was also at the panel that Dia and I are hosting. Um, they were just kind of just hanging out in the back. So we were the first panel of the convention. Our panel was at 10 a.m., so I had to be up and early. I had to be dolled up as Sailor Mars. And basically, we were just talking about, yeah, like what happened. Let's talk about cosplaying from books. How do you bring that to life? And when your sources are very limited in terms of photos, color, or limited descriptions, what do you do? So that was just kind of like what the approach we were going with. And my co-panelists, they were also just sharing like here's some photos of just how people interpreted characters. So they had a friend who was cosplaying as Freya from Akotar. It was funny because the morning of, a friend and I were listening to like a video on YouTube called "Every Female Main Character in Every Fantasy Book Like Ever," and that is so true to Akotar. I'm not gonna lie. And some of them, one of their friends was also cosplaying as Nico from the Percy Jackson series. And because I have a cat named Nico, that probably might be my way to convince me to check out the Percy Jackson series. So yeah, that's just kind of like just our town square here. I also love the person wearing the Sailor Moon jacket over here too. Again, like I said, that we had like a lot of presents of Star Wars, but I believe it was mainly we because well, one I feel Star Wars is like an evergreen fandom, and like I mentioned before, you have like a lot of generations and a lot of fandoms represented at Geek Girl Con. So you have like again K-pop Demon Hunters, Star Wars, a lot of the fantasy folks coming in. Um, I was wearing Sailor Mars, and I was very happy to see like a lot of like anime cosplay represented as well, even like within nerdy clothing too. So I was also checking out like some of the booths in the vendor hall. So, because one of the things I like to do, like first whenever I'm at a convention, like yeah, let me just check out the vendor hall because I just want to see who's there. And I also appreciate they also had some charity groups there here too, like Extra Life. I was also talking to them about like yeah, like what you guys do, like yeah, just tell me more about your organization. I also met Emerald City Romance Writers. I ended up joining their group because I am in the process of writing a young adult school idol rom-com right now. I am in the beta reader phase. And honestly, if any of you know like anyone who beta reads, please let me know because there's a lot of scammy people out there. So I was also talking to SoccerCon, NorwestCon, which is the Pacific Northwest's sci-fi fantasy convention. They were also having a table there too. So I just like again a lot of cross generation, a lot of cross fandom meeting all here all at once as well. I also love that there were a lot of candle vendors. Like right now, I'm lighting up the Golden Retriever candle. There's a vendor that had like scents based on book boyfriends, and the Golden Retriever one is a very common book trope. It's also one of my favorites that I'm starting to really like because I thought like, Golden Retriever, like whatever, but like, okay, when written well, I actually like the Golden Retriever trope. So I also got this candle. It's called Watcher. Of course, we know, yeah, Giles, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But as a native of Torrance, um, I like to, yes, internally we like to call Torrance High School where Buffy was filmed, Sunnydale High School. So like, yeah, I gotta get the Torrance Librarian candle. Even the person who was running the booth, let me just get the name of it right here, Nerdwax Candle Company. I was even telling them like, yeah, I'm from Torrance. I always pass by this school like all the time when I used to live in the area. So yeah, from just remember, having fun is not that hard when you have a library card. And just a couple of just other things on Saturday, like at the vendor hall, and just kind of just a few things from Geek Girl Con. Charlie's Queer Books. I love that there was a queer bookstore there, and it felt very genuine and just really felt from the heart. I like the fact they had like manga, they had like books there. I see that Iron Widow is on the shelf here. I have that had that book on my TBR for years. It's on my shelf. Can someone in the comments please convince me to read that finally? And then also from Nerdwax, I don't know if y'all seen this movie. I saw the TV Glow. This is just one of those slow burn movies that's very trans themed and it's very like has like a lot of themes about like what it means to stay in the closet versus to be out of the closet. It took me a while to appreciate what this movie was all about and the themes that it was presenting, but I believe it's streaming on HBO Max and then I was like, "Oh my God, I'm just so glad that to see that this movie is represented in the vendor room, even if it's in candle form." And yes, these are VHS tapes because this is a show that takes place or kind of looks at nostalgia from like the 90s and early 2000s. So yeah, I without saying too much about the movie, I highly recommend if you're looking for movies with deep queer themes and that you're okay with just kind of being a little bit weirded out because I admit it does take time. It does take time for this movie to really sink in. Um, because I remember watching it in the first round and was like, wait, what happened? Can someone explain like what's going on? But after watching it like and just listening to analyses of I saw the TV glow, I was like, okay, it's finally sinking in. Also, the meetups. These were the kind of meetups of they had. I'm not sure about the motorsport meetup. I'm not too familiar with that world. But I did moderate the BIPOC meetup. I didn't want to take photos of like the meetup section because I just wanted to respect their privacy. I wanted to respect their space. So basically, the way that I at least how I handled the meetup was we just kind of all just sat like in a round table. We just kind of like just introduced ourselves, shared our pronouns, shared our cultural background, shared what we were currently watching, what brings us to Geek Girl Con, if this was our first or 15th Geek Girl Con. I just tried to like just kind of like just spark conversation going, just kind of like just bounce off from there. In certain respects, I felt like I could have done a better job, but then again, I also know that I'm also my worst critic as well. But this is something I wouldn't mind doing again, and I can only get better in terms of helping run these and facilitate these meetups the more I keep doing them. So I don't mind doing this again because I felt like, okay, I kind of learned what I need to learn to make these interactive and to be much more inclusive. So at least I know that going in for next time, I have the opportunity to run one of these. So a few of the other meetups, there was the LGBTQ plus meetup. I didn't go to that one because we were having lunch at the time. Cool. I like that there was a teen meetup as well. And also my friend also went to the ASL meetup because there was also like, hey, let's practice sign language because my friend was also needed like sign language practice too. Just more cosplays and more vibes from Saturday. Like I said, this is a very multi-generational, multi everything fandom type of convention. So again, a lot of Disney. We all seen like, oh hey, Deltarune, because my buddy Eddie also cosplays from Deltarune. And like, Chibi Jinx, I appreciate that. And this is us just walking over towards the Dough Zone, which is like one of my favorite restaurants in the Pacific Northwest. I usually go to the one out in the suburbs because anytime there's a fandom convention in downtown Seattle, the Dough Zone is always crowded. However, we only had a 15-minute wait for the Dough Zone. And we had like a fairly small party of us, like a party of about five of us. And thank you, friends, for thank you, friends, for lunch. I very much appreciate it because I love Dozone. However, I think the weirdest thing I've had at Dozone, all of us are curious to try this specific dumpling. It was like the pumpkin pie dumpling. All right, so the dumpling shell kind of made it a little bit weird for taste, but once you got to the actual pumpkin pie itself, okay, that's a pumpkin pie, but definitely eat that with the whipped cream because otherwise it just, I don't know, just like the combination of like the dumpling shell and the pie stuff just felt kind of weird, but like, yeah, definitely have that with whipped cream. Kind of glad I did. Don't think I'll ever order that again, but I'm always up for a weird food adventure. Also, for some reason, I just like taking photos of just random things like around the convention area. So the Paramount Theater, this had the Sailor Moon Super Live musical there last spring, and then we had the musical about Corn, which was playing right across the street while we were waiting for our call to get seated for lunch. So the text here says, yes, Komi in the chat, the pie filling. That's what I meant to say. This is the second podcast I'm running today. Anyway, the text here says the Emerald City just went yellow. That doesn't sound fun. My mind is going in like strange places. But yeah, the Corn musical right across the street from us. Also, we had this video game orchestra also perform. There was also a video game choir that was performing at the convention, but I think we were having lunch while that was happening. They're performing just various songs from video games. But these people here, I think we went in like as they were playing the Mario theme, and I just had to snap a photo. I saw them rehearsing as we were on our way to lunch, and I just appreciate all these nerdy vibes just kind of coming into Seattle, just kind of coming into as people were just entering and exiting the building for Geek Girl Con. I also wanted to mention that Geek Girl Con just was mainly took about 4 floors for a certain section of the old Washington Convention Center. I know it's called the Arch Building, but sometimes I just call them the old building and the new building. The new building was not used. In the old building, there was a nursing convention of sorts, and then we had the 4 floors right across the street, which is, I guess that's called the Arch Building. That's where we had like Geek Girl Con. So it was very small and it was very easy to navigate across all 4 floors. You can either use the escalator, you can either use the elevator. So I really felt like it was really accessible just getting around the area. And it wasn't too hard to find panel rooms. It's not like you're going through the new building of the Washington Convention Center, like up the hill. It's like, okay, how does the number system works here again? Also, I know this is a blurry photo, but I wanted to at least just like show that like one of the things I liked about Geek Girl Con, again, all ages, really emphasizing that all ages aspect of it. Not only you can get a library card if you are a resident of Washington. Sadly, I am not yet. Um, they had like a science DIY zone. So like if you had kids, it was like a hands-on way to like just do like science projects, science experiments. Like I know if I had like a tiny human or two, like yeah, I would totally take them to this. Like yeah, let's do experiments. Let's have fun with science. And the one thing I did want to just peek into was the insect section. I know insects I know make like people's like skins crawl, but I always like looking at like, yeah, let me just take a look at some of your exotic insects that you brought over. I didn't take photos because I also wanted to just sort of respect the space. Um, I know I actually do know people who would be interested in seeing like some of the exotic insects they brought over, but like, okay, let me just take a look because I'm just always curious to see like just different types of animals, even if they like make me feel creepy. But anyway, I just thought this was just a really cool zone, just kind of like just keep kids engaged and like yeah, and also you're learning something too. And then this pretty much concludes it for Saturday. I also went to a publisher's panel on how to submit to various agents and how to go about the query process. And while it was more focused in with example, like how to submit your short stories, they also talked about like expanding your short stories to a novel. Like I don't have any short stories on my queue right now. I do have one short story kind of in the works that's more horror themed. But they were also talking about just alternate avenues to get your short story published. They were talking about like possibilities in like just getting a short story like as a radio production. So one of the authors at the panel was talking about like, yeah, I had this short story and then I decided to put it in script format and I sent it over to Dr. No Sleep. Dr. No Sleep is a horror short stories kind of podcast where they use voice actors to tell these stories. They just take script submissions and they just act it out, and it's on Spotify. I know because I used to listen to a lot of Dr. No Sleep when I used to have like long commutes. But they were also talking about like, yeah, you can also do that as well, and just how to go find about finding anthologies, keeping professionalism, and just a lot of just things. I just feel like anyone who's very serious about like submitting to publishers, submitting to agents, submitting to anthologies should know. And I think this was a good refresher for me because I will be starting on the querying process next year for an agent for my young adult rom com. So Saturday didn't just end at Geek Girl Con. I actually met one of my favorite authors, Stephanie Clemens, who wrote one of my favorite reads this year. I was for disclosure, I was an ARC reader, advanced reader copy, meaning like you get an advanced copy of the book, you read it, you review it, leave an honest review. I was part of that group. But I love her book so much. It's called Mundane Mornings and Enchanted Evenings. It is a Pride and Prejudice retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses. It's very cottagecore. It's definitely my vibe. Well, anything with a Mr. Darcy kind of character is always going to be my vibe. But so speaking of Mr. Darcy and Jane Austen, I went over to Love Struck in Seattle because they were talking, telling me about Love Struck in Seattle because I remember they were posting on their Instagram, like, yeah, there's this new romance bookstore in Seattle, and I've been following them ever since their opening. And because they were like on the north side, they were like on our way back to where I was staying. Okay, let's go check out Love Struck in Seattle. They're still open. And I also know that the person who owns Love Struck in Seattle is also an anime nerd who used to cosplay like in the early 2000s. I really wanted to meet her, but sadly, I guess she wasn't working on Saturday evening. Um, so of course, because I was still wearing Mars, I went into this romance bookstore dressed up as Sailor Mars, and there were a few books I was kind of curious about. I always like getting something that's a little bit unique at like every bookstore that I go to. So I ended up getting a special edition of Sense and Sensibility. I used to have an old Bantam copy of Sense and Sensibility that I got like in high school, like out of Walden Books. And I remember reading that my junior year, and I remember the English literature professor approaching is like, yeah, that's one of my favorite books. I'm like, great. In Britlit, we're going to cover Jane Austen. And then I was sad that we didn't cover Jane Austen when I took British literature. So sad. But yeah, we can read Kim by Rudyard Kipling. Colonialism. Um, So I got a special edition that's sitting right next to my special edition of Pride and Prejudice, which I picked up in the United Kingdom at the Jane Austen Center. So yeah, I love how this place also, you can also take some selfies with their mirror here, and you can also just take a selfie with their signage here. It's like, and I was still wearing my badge too. I don't know if you could like see on the badge. But one of the things I liked about the badges, again, just like KumoriCon the weekend before, I love that there was a section on your badge, like a little circle, where you can put your pronouns on. Um, I go by she, they, so I had to get two stickers. But I just went with she, her. Like, yeah, she, her's totally fine. But there was just only, I think they only had like one sticker um, to choose from because I think they didn't have a combination of she, they. Like, okay, but she's fine. But I like that there was a section on your badge where you can put that sticker, so so it's very clear and people can see your pronouns in case if you have any doubt. Um, yeah, 'cause like I said in the Kumori Con podcast, I don't like it when you have the pronouns thing as like a ribbon because I kind of feel like it's easy not to see and it's easy to not catch it because when it comes to ribbons, people are collecting ribbons. I also appreciated that there were people giving out ribbons at Artist Alley. I should have brought some ribbons for this convention, and I think, as a general rule of thumb, anytime I'm up in the Pacific Northwest, that any convention up in the Pacific Northwest is a ribbon can be a ribbon con. All right, but yeah, that Saturday just ended up going to Love Struck in Seattle. A plus would definitely visit again. All right, before we go on to day two, Convention Tea is brought to you by Yimak Sweater. Yimak Sweater is one of my favorite cozy clothing places. Yimak, this is where uh, you can use my code YIMAC-Dame Adzenbol to get 40% off your total purchase. So winter is coming, so get your cozy sweaters here at yimacsweater.com. I'm probably gonna get some leopard print sweaters for our Angel Hearts retreat up in Northern California. We're a lot of us are just going for the Gyaru leopard print aesthetic, and I need more leopard print in my collection. I do have a leopard print beret, so let's see. All right, Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. So here we are. We just arrived at the Seattle Convention Center, but we're gonna keep to our left and head over to the Arch Building. It's just so surreal, just kind of like just using a small section of the Seattle Convention Center. When my last couple times at Seattle Convention Center, I've been to events that use the entire space, but this is a space of the Seattle Convention Center that I'm so not used to like seeing a lot. But again, it was just really easy to navigate. Um, Much like Kumori Con, I just wasn't a fan of the coffee I had the day before, but my friends recommended me to check out this place next to the Seattle Convention Center. Service is slow on Sunday, but then again, they only have one barista, so I tried their fall flavored latte. One of the best fall flavored lattes I ever had. It was a maple spice one. I also had a maple spice one at KomoriCon, but I think this had the better maple spice to it. So that was just essentially my breakfast, including a hash brown on Sunday. Like, yeah, I had to start my day out with coffee so I can also do my panel at the end of the day. So again, Sunday was also the huge cosplay contest day. We had Spyro from that video game. I love their take on the character here. I was very happy to see Vocaloid, and I was also very happy to see Macross Frontier. Two idols, one place. So it was, again, I was just very happy to just see like some familiar fandoms and fandoms of childhood. Also, if you look closely, right behind our Vocaloid cosplayer here, you can also see the Sakura Con booth. You can also see the Norwest Con booth, and the person like who's sitting in the Norwest Con booth is really giving Gendo Ikari vibes, like the way how Gendo Ikari just kind of sits down. Um, and also the tables to the right of the cosplayer, that's where they had the autograph signings. I didn't see much of the autograph signings there because they did have like a couple of authors who were also signing their books to courtesy of Charlie's Queer Books, and they also had a couple of anime voice actors as guests of honor as well. So this is just where you can like just sign. I didn't really see like again because I was just running around all over the place as a contributor slash meetup host person. Like, I didn't really see a lot of activity here, but again, I was just running around all over the place. But yeah, just kind of some Sunday vibes. So I was very happy to see My Little Pony cosplay. I was just telling them like, yeah, I used to cosplay as Fluttershy, and I have a Pinkie. So I have a Pinkie Pie wig. I have Pinkie Pie cutie marks. I just haven't got around to like make a 80s girl like Pinkie Pie outfit. However, there is a bookstore event the week before Emerald City Comic Con, and it's an 80s party. Maybe I might make Pinkie Pie for that if I do decide to do it. And then, of course, I was very happy seeing Uma Musume cosplay. And they also had a booth selling Uma Musume keychains. I ended up getting an Urara for a friend of mine. And then they didn't have Zeno Rob Roy there just yet. It's like, okay, I'll wait for like artists to like have Zeno Rob Roy, and then I'll make a Zeno Rob Roy eat a bag or something. I do have an extra eat a bag to do so. So like, yes, give me all the Zeno Rob Roy, this and that. And of course, kind of going on with our Disney trend, we had like Oogie Boogie over here. And again, really cool cosplay represented at the convention. Yeah, just a few more vibes from the convention. I'm really big into like the whole fantasy kind of vibes. I love here in the background that you can see like My Chemical Romance prints. And also, my favorite tea place here. This is one of my favorite tea places, and yeah, if you're lucky, you could try like scanning a QR code because they have like one of my favorite like lavender. It's a blueberry lavender kind of tea. It's one of my favorites. Just mixing it with lavender tea, it's like one of the best. Um, yeah, it's like one of my favorite tea places. But yeah, like I think like I think the vendors hall was very strong this year in terms of variety. And again, these are vendors I don't normally see in Southern California, and vendors I don't normally see like at Emerald City Comic Con or Sakura Con. I just like seeing like a variety of just like different vendors because I ended up buying Final Fantasy soap and bath salts. I did try the bath salts last night, and I had a good night's sleep. So if I have trouble sleeping and I just need like just get a good night's sleep, I'm definitely going to use those bath salts because as soon as I got to bed, I was just completely knocked out. I think I probably was in the middle of like playing Uma Musume, and I just kind of like just slept during the middle like, of a horse race or something. And then other things I got from the dealer's hall. Obviously got candles. I'm currently burning my golden retriever energy one right now. And then yeah, I just even got a copy of Stephanie Clemens' special edition version of Mundane Mornings and Enchanted Evenings. And not photoed here, but I probably not photoed. There's no photo of it here, but I'll probably maybe I'll have this in the whatchamacallit on the thumbnail of this video. Someone was selling stickers of University of Washington's Husky, and it looks so adorable. Excuse me for one second. Okay, that was my bad. I had to get a quick drink because I am feeling dry. Also, what I like about this convention is they still encourage masking up. So a lot of conventions, while they do have masks available, like I know of a KumariCon, you can get like one of those black standard face mask over at the Coffee Repair. However, they have I call these like the hospital grade ones. I know there's a name to it. I just call these hospital grade a mask. I normally just use cloth masks because that's what I have available. Because I used to be a vendor to make like cloth masks like during a lockdown, but I do appreciate them giving out like the hospital grade mask. If people wanted to feel safe and mask up at the convention, considering it's also the season of getting sick, I always appreciate that these were here. Also, one of my favorite panels was the American Doll panel. And this is the second time in the Pacific Northwest that I attended an American Girl panel. And I swear, I think the universe is trying to tell me to cosplay from American Girl. Not gonna lie, I was looking up Samantha Parkington cosplays right before recording this podcast. Yeah, unfortunately, Target is selling the Samantha Parkington dress. I think is an online exclusive, and my size is already sold out. It's like, I guess it's up to me to make her birthday dress. Yeah, so I'm just gonna. So yeah, Samantha Parkington. That's one of my dream cosplays. However, I also have ideas for Felicity. I'm probably gonna do her birthday dress too. But Samantha means a lot to me because it was the first American Girl book I ever owned. And I wanted to get a Samantha doll, but she was always sold out. Because it was back in the day where you can only order directly from the catalog. So my first doll ended up being Molly because my parents were like, yeah, she wears glasses. Molly wears glasses. Molly's probably your favorite. And I just started to like fall more in love with Molly as a kid because Samantha kind of felt unattainable to me. Because again, her doll was always sold out. She was super popular. It's like, okay, if everyone wants to be Samantha, then like I want to be Molly. And then Felicity came out. I'm that old, people. I remember when Felicity was a new character. And then because I just came back from a trip from Massachusetts, I learned a lot about the American Revolution. And then because like she was a character from the American Revolution, like, hey, I really like this character. And I'm probably gonna cosplay her too. Maybe at Emerald City Comic Con, I'll wear her birthday outfit. Um, oh yeah, and we were also just talking about just some of the darker moments of the American Girl series. Like, hi, hey, remember when Kristen's friend died? I remember that too. I read that while I was camping. I was traumatized. And just like other things, like yeah, things in American Girl that like totally traumatized us as kids. Yeah, I remember Josephine. We also gave a shout out to her too. However, we were also talking about like the 1999 historical girls. They're twins and they're from Seattle. I need to read their book because I'm just morbidly curious. But I do agree with the panelists because like the panelists they're also history scholars and they were talking about like yeah, it would have been nice if the Seattle twins from 1999 were like Southeast Asians. And you know what? You're right. I mean like I just feel like we just need like more Asian characters, like whether it's from Southeast Asia, um South Asian, East Asian, because yeah, we do have Ivy, who's Julie's BFF, but Ivy is not considered a historical character. She's just considered as the Asian friend, and she's not even seen in this lineup here. And like I might have the Ivy book, but it's been a while. But usually the quote unquote best friend characters are just more like I hate to say it, they're more like a side piece or they're more like an accessory than they are a star girl, a historical girl. But yeah, I was thinking like it'd been nice if they had like a Southeast Asian character character or like a set of twins because like yeah, you're right. There was like a lot of people coming in from the Southeast into the tech industry. I mean, ask me how I know. I mean, one of my goals as a writer is I'd love to write that Southeast historical girl. I mean, I'm just going off tangent here because I love any opportunity I can have about American Girl. Um, like I even wrote about like a Vietnamese refugee girl. Her name's Chloe, named after Chloe, one of the winners of Project Runway. Because like okay, I just want to name this doll after someone who was popular at the time. Kind of like how my brother, who was born in the late 80s, was named after Prince Andrew because Andrew just happened to be on screen. We were actually having a conversation at the convention, like how like when my friends was just saying like, yeah, I was named after Sean Connery because I made mention like, yeah, my brother's named after Prince Andrew. Yeah, that aged well. But yeah, so I really, yeah, I would love to write that, the first Southeast Asian American Girl story, because like, yeah, this is the series that got me into reading chapter books and just really got me buying books. Because like, as an 80s kid, as a 90s kid, Goosebumps, Fear Street, American Girl, those are my jam. Yeah, and then I also wanted to just make mention that I did run the Sailor Moon panel. Not Sailor Moon panel, my bad. Ah, the conventions, they're blurring together. I also wanted to make mention that I ran the 90s Magical Girl panel because I just kind of feel like if you're going to have a Geek Girl convention, um, get a nerdy person like me to talk about the anime side of like magical girls, because I know like right now there's a lot of controversial discourse about shojo in the modern day and what constitute as shojo. So anytime I talk about shojo, I want to talk about how shojo ties into girlhood, how shojo ties into using femininity as like your superpower, and also reclaiming femininity as well. And you know what, pink, it's a powerful color. So I just wanted to just run this panel like, yeah, let's talk about 90s shoujo. Unfortunately, I had to deal with the Wi-Fi situation. I actually took a page from my buddy Geki here, who does something similar with mecha anime. So I'm talking about like, okay, this is a shoujo classic. Here's the opening, and this is where you can watch the series. I was lucky to have some videos work. Some of them didn't work as much, but this is kind of like a test run because I plan to do the same panel at AMA Los Angeles next year. It was very well attended. I actually did see some familiar faces from Kumori Con at this panel too, because like, yeah, if you're gonna be a Geek Girl Con, I'm gonna be running the 90s shoujo panel. If anyone can make it, love to see you there. And I actually did see some familiar faces, and I actually do appreciate like seeing like familiar faces at my panel. And again, we create like the space for like millennial femmes to just kind of like just talk and reminisce about like this era of shoujo anime when I feel that magical girl anime was truly at its peak. Because I kind of feel like shoujo anime, or at least shoujo, the idea of shoujo has kind of fallen into seinen and shonen. I mean, controversial take, and honestly, this should not be as controversial as it sounds. I don't consider Madoka shoujo. It's by Gen Orobuchi, and it was more to subvert shoujo tropes and more to like just commentate on magical girl anime itself. So that's just my controversial take. But I just also been noticing like there's a lot of shows that are more meant for men that uses shoujo aesthetics and shoujo tropes that people misread as shoujo, if that makes any sense. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to run this panel. Like, hi, it's time for the girls to reclaim shoujo. It's time for the femmes of all walks of life, to just reclaim our girlhood and own up to it. And that's one of the reasons why I want to do like 90s shoujo magical girls are totally awesome. All right. I pretty much was wrapped up Geek Girl Con after that panel. I had to run back to Los Angeles. So with that said, I do have a book on the Fangirl Diaries. If this is your first time tuning into Convention Tea, I am also an author. My first book debuted earlier this year, literally the weekend of Emerald City Comic Con. Basically, this book is all about late 90s and early 2000s anime fandom. What was it like for a millennial to consume anime fandom? How did we figure the whole thing out? Like, how did we figure out getting anime, watching Sailor Moon uncensored, and why the whole cousins thing kind of confused us? So this is just something I would recommend if you want to read more up about like what appealed to shoujo to millennial femmes at the time. I also include like what it was like to find identity and community during this time, and why anime conventions to me at the time were very important third spaces. And tying it back with Geek Girl Con, I really do think this is a very important third space for femmes to connect, because we're losing a lot of third spaces. And to me, this was a very valuable experience attending such a con as this, which I will get into the final thoughts. So, my final general thoughts on Geek Girl Con is I had a great time. Oh, yeah, you can see the pronouns sticker here a little bit more clearly. It's right above the 2-day thing for she, her. I really enjoyed my Pacific Northwest tour, um, even though, like, yeah, I'm still recovering. I still have another convention coming up this weekend. Um, it was a very exciting time. And with Geek Girl Con, it was definitely it's definitely becoming one of my favorite conventions. The whole experience is still sinking in, and I just enjoyed like just seeing all the vendors, just being able to like just check out different panels that spoke to me. I like that there was a variety of panels like from just different aspects of fandom, whether it was writing, whether it was tabletop, whether it was like if you're a book person, if you're like a Marvel or a Disney person, if you're into costuming. This is the whole intersection of like just different ways to express geekdom was very present. And I feel that this is something that was missing from like a lot of pop culture cons because I feel like there's a lot of ways you can call yourself a geek because the way I kind of like define my geekiness is a combination of like mostly anime, mostly most excuse me, anime books. Sometimes I'll delve into video games. Sorry, I'm a MacBook user, so I can only play what's available on a MacBook and on a mobile game. So unless Baldur's Gate, the mobile waifu husbando spousu experience comes out, sadly I'm not able to play Baldur's Gate 3. But anyway, yeah, raise your Asterion. I can imagine like so many people wailing for Asterion if there was a Baldur's Gate mobile like that actually was in the style of like a dating sim. I would totally play Baldur's Gate if it was in the actual style of a J dating sim. But I'm going off topic. Everyone's on staff was very friendly. I really like the friendly vibes. I like seeing people of all different generations of geekiness, whether you're a youngling, whether you're Gen Alpha and you're just kind of in the lightsaber training academy, whether you were like over at the DIY Science Zone. I like seeing a lot of the Gen Z folks coming out. Yay, millennials from the late 1900s, my people. I love that we're still going to conventions and still not being afraid to identify as nerdy geeks and stuff. And of course, shout out to my Gen X friends who tagged along, and also it was cool like seeing Gen X folks also at my panels too. And of course, like we cannot forget our boomer friends as well. Yeah, thank you so much to my friends for like just making this all happen. I love you all very much. I am doing a hand hearts thing right now. My VTuber avatar cannot do it for me, but I am just so you know I'm doing the hand hearts thing. But yeah, I had a great time. I definitely would love to come back. Definitely would love to do this again because I want to be a part of communities like this that really keep that flame alive and that keep these third spaces going. Again, I'm more than happy to support this convention in any capacity I can, and I would love to be back. And yeah, I know that KumoriCon and Geek Girl Con, they're not like back to back for 2026, but you know what? We'll figure something out because going back to back with Geek Girl Con and KumoriCon on the Pacific Northwest, it just solidified my reasoning and my rationale. Like, yeah, I really belong here in the Pacific Northwest, among the writers, among the nerds, and among people who want to be genuine in creating community within fandom. And with that said, thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of Convention Tea. Great to have you here. If this is your first time tuning in, be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out our links below and also check out my book too, The Fangirl Diaries. And I also invite you to also request The Fangirl Diaries at your local library because as our friend Giles says, having fun is not hard when you have a library card. He has a dog named Wishbone. Anyway, so with that said, thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of Convention Tea, and we will wrap up our last edition of Convention Tea for 2025 this weekend at San Diego Anime Con. Boy, am I ready for that. Yeah, remember, the con is what you make of it, so we'll see you at the con. Or was it the con is what you make of it, so make it a good one? And we'll see you at the con. I'm forgetting my own catchphrases. I need a nap. All right. Couch, 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 couch.